as most of you know, I was on retreat last week. I took a soulful trek through northern New Mexico. I'd like to share some of the experience and relate it to Zen and to our practice. It was, if anything, centered on more Native American spirituality and various things which might be more on the soul level, the archetypal level, the heart level. Maybe best associated with what I was talking about 2 weeks ago in my teisho, the Sambhogakaya, the bliss body, the enjoyment body of the Buddha, as opposed to the earthly Buddha or the absolute Buddha, absolute nature, that area of inner experience, which would correspond in Christian terms to the risen Christ or the cosmic Christ, as opposed to the eternal Word or the earthly Jesus before his passion and resurrection. But in any case, we're kind of dealing on that level, especially Native American spirituality that we dealt with. In fact, that first day, we did a sweat lodge. It's the first time I've done that. Some of you may know that it's a very dark, enclosed space, totally dark. I mean, pitch black, and very hot, with hot stones in the middle. So you create a very great sweat in there. And the drumming and the chanting bring you out of your usual, mind, thoughts and feelings to a much more primal level. And for the Native Americans themselves, it was meant to be kind of a womb experience, and you're kind of reborn through it. And with the darkness and the moisture, and the primal quality coming out again after 2 hours, it is like it very much feels like a rebirth. And by then it was dark and cool, and so you're coming like out into the world anew, like reborn. And that's what many spiritualities, certainly the Christian spirituality, present as what the spiritual experience is. You're constantly being reborn, born again. We reach a whole new level of life and awareness, kind of like being reborn, and so that's a wonderful, not just symbol of that, but an actual experience of that. And then we'd also visit some hot springs, and that's just kind of like the same thing, like a baptism, like an entering into the deep well of a new experience, to rise again from that. What the retreat was centered on, though, was actual breath work, and of course that relates to so many spiritualities. Certainly Zen with the breathing, the emphasis on the breathing. The breathing as being primal, as it being what's most connected to our life, most immediately, organically, our being. This was, a deeper, more intensive, faster breathing over quite a period, like 15, 20 minutes, to enter into a whole new state of consciousness. And I'd done it once before, but I wanted to go deeper into it. Remember, in the spiritual life and in our human life, as they say, you should always do something that scares you every day, at least once. So, I really wanted to push the boundaries, and I did find that, the expansion of the heart, and the awareness was very powerful. So once again, here's the breath. The sweat lodge, inipi, as it's called, in the Native American tradition, that actually means breath lodge. So it's not the sweat that's the focus, it's the actual breathing. And when you come out of the womb, well, what do you get? Smack, and you breathe, That's so that's interesting that they would focus on that. It's like a new spirit, a new life as you're reborn. But the breathwork itself specifically has very much that same effect. Speaking of wombs, we visited what's called the Origin Caves. There's this Vietnam veteran. There's a documentary about him who carved a number of cave-like structures inside the limestone cliffs as a therapeutic exercise for himself and others, and to cultivate beauty, which one of the phrases we used was, not irrepressible, but relentless exposure to extreme beauty. That's going to change. But we did it under the full moon at night, walking up, a third of a mile into the cliff, and inside it's like a womb. It's got very curved surfaces, by candlelight, and there was a music, what do you call it, like the bowl sounding ceremony. So there again, it was like entering into the darkness, into the womb, and being reborn again. It was a very rich and profound experience. What I'd like to focus on especially, though, is what we did the last day. We went to a place called the Temple of the Cosmos. It's a great day today to do that. St. Francis of Assisi, our patron saint here at this church, where we have our Zendo, who was, if anything, the patron saint of the cosmos, patron saint of the environment, officially, in the Catholic Church. But this awareness of, the sun and the moon and the stars, and the whole planet, very much a Native American spirituality. We had a ceremony with one of the 13, now 12, international indigenous grandmothers. You don't mess with an indigenous grandmother. So that was a wonderful experience. But the temple itself is not a building. It's not a temple any more than the temple of the universe. The cosmos is an actual building. There's, of course, I've spoken often about the great koan with that, where the blade of grass is planted by the king of the gods, Indra, and this is the temple. This is the sanctuary. So it's nature itself which is the sanctuary. Here there are quite a number of, over 22 acres, labyrinths, with stone, obsidian, quartz, selenite, granite, all sorts of wonderful stonework, creating various labyrinths, which are the various temples that he's done over the past 15 or 20 years. This man who is an anthropologist and then had his illumination, his life-changing experience in Sedona, Arizona, where else, more than 20 years ago, and his autobiography is a book I bought here. But it's about the stars. It's called Star Dreaming, the Temple of the Cosmos. And the cottage there, which is his studio, is called that. And the Starport, as he enters into his studio, and the drawings of the constellations and star systems on the ceiling. It's very impressive. And as he says in the autobiography, he was told, you will understand that stars are the light of the universe, the love and energy for all to enjoy. So they're not just rocks, planets or stars. It's not just scientific. It's the light of the universe, the love and energy for all to enjoy. In classical times, there was called the quintessence. That's actually a word, of course. Quintessence is the fifth essence. So you don't just have earth, air, fire, and water. You have some other thing the heavenly bodies are made of. They were considered to be, it's not scientifically accurate, but the sense that there was kind of like a higher being, a higher consciousness there. And, the ancient Aristotelians, and the Platonists also thought that they were actually intelligent beings, stars. Or at least that there was an intelligence, a higher intelligence behind, each of the heavenly bodies. That there were somehow some kind of higher consciousness associated with it. Maybe the angel, some kind of angelic powers. St. Thomas Aquinas actually refutes one of the Arab Aristotelians who said that the human intellect, there's only one that's shared by all of us, one agent intellect, and it's behind the moon. So if you want to tap into human consciousness, go to the moon. Interesting idea, right? But, St. Thomas says, no. But you can see the tendency there is just to realize that there's, and astrology and Aristotle goes into all this too, but there's really an ancient tradition that there is some kind of conscious energy associated with the stars and planets. And every night, in this magnificent New Mexican sky, we'd see Venus, the morning star, come out, and the evening star rather, and then the morning star and the planets before the stars came out. And then of course it's the time of the full moon too, when we were there. So we have a very strong connection to that, and it's very beautiful. I gave a whole teisho at a session once at the retreat house on the Jersey coast, now closed, called Stella Maris, which is star of the sea. which was one of the translations, probably not accurate, of Maria, Mariam, Mary. Mary was called the Star of the Sea, Mariam. And Jesus, of course, is called, the bright morning star in the book of Revelation. Now that connects to the great first koan in the Denko Roku, the great enlightenment of the Buddha himself. You remember the story. He was enlightened. He spent the whole night in meditation, determined, to wake up, which he did as the morning star appeared. So it must be pretty powerful if the Buddha himself woke up when he saw the morning star after his night of preparation for that. So we might say that's a symbol of enlightenment. It was a catalyst for enlightenment, and maybe if it does have some kind of powerful energy associated with it, one of the agents of enlightenment. So that's just very fascinating idea. I mean, it was an actual active, something that really connected with the Buddha. So he was able to say at that moment, and that's the first koan, he says, "I and the great earth and all beings simultaneously attain the way." So what he woke up to was the fact that everything is one, everything is connected, that there's a unity and a connection to everything. And the stars can help us with that. Traditionally, according to all these cosmologies, and maybe simply in our own experience. Now, one of the angelic powers that this man, James Jarrett is his name, at the Temple of the Cosmos paints a lot of is Metatron. And one of our retreatants with us, there were a dozen of us, mentioned Metatron too at one point. And it's interesting. So in the cosmology I received and discovered, Metatron would be on this higher level of precisely the stars and planets. So this fits perfectly. So that's who you encounter. You're talking about angelic intelligences and higher consciousnesses associated with the stars. Hold on to your seats if you're not following me here. Just try if you can. So this is his, and he has a number of these very similar ones. Just an immense circle with lots of dots. He calls it cosmic pointism of transformation, his artistic style. It says on the back here. Cosmic pointism of transformation. So our consciousness is transformed, and all of reality is like this circle with all the dots, all the different sequins, if you like, aspects of reality. And this fits in very well with a couple of the traditional Zen images, because in my cosmology, Metatron is very much associated with Manjusri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. And if you'll recall, and I've spoken of this before, Manjusri rides on a golden-haired lion. Talk about archetypes and images. And each golden hair of the lion reflects every other golden hair, like a hologram, which is a good thing here. All the dots connected to all the other dots. And it's all one circle, all one fullness, all one reality. So at this level of awareness, of consciousness, you're getting into the unity of all things, still reflected in each thing. You've still got each thing. So it's not absolute Advaita yet, not the absolute itself, non-duality. But you see how, still experience how everything is so rich, but not disconnected, not separate, not one, not two, not three. So it's a very rich level of awareness, of Manjusri himself. It's also associated in Zen lore, this image of the golden-haired lion with the net of Indra, the Hindu image, the net of Indra, the highest of the gods, the one who planted the grass, blade of grass that I mentioned earlier. The net of Indra is the same thing. Everything is a network. So I used the same image before we even started speaking about networks or internet or whatever. That everything is connected like a net, strands that are all interwoven. So it's all these currents, all these strands of the different traditions kind of come together here in a very fascinating way, I find. And even the front of his autobiography is the same image of that circle. Just pointism, cosmic pointism of transformation. And transformation is what we're talking about in any of our traditions here. He has a lot of angels, other angels that are more recognizable, like St. Michael. I like St. Michael. We just had his feast, but it says, open your heart and mind to the stars, it says on the inside. And by the way, what he says on the inside here is, allow to receive everything and nothing. So everything here, remember the circle, everything, all the dots, but it's no thing, no one thing, not separate, So you have to kind of become no thing in order to become everything. And we are everything. We see we ourselves are connected to everything. On every level of our being. And that's the kind of awareness, consciousness we have to wake up to. So allow to receive everything and nothing. Allow to receive. He points out that star is an anagram, is a mnemonic for him. S-T-A-R. Surrender, trust, allow, and receive. You can't have a better attitude on your cushion or in your life or in church or wherever you are. You can't have a better attitude than that. Surrender, trust, allow, and receive. And you will receive. You don't even have to ask and you'll receive. Ask by sitting down and opening yourself and surrendering. That's how you ask. Ask and you will receive. So allow to receive everything and nothing. And on the back it says, we are everything and nothing. That's why we can receive it, because we're already it. We are everything and nothing. Just have to wake up to it. So St. Michael, notice that he has the 6 wings. This is traditional Jewish and Christian iconography, by the way, the 6 wings. If you look at Isaiah 6, the 6-winged seraph, fathers of the church interpreted it. 2 wings cover the body, so all our passions, they're covered over here. 2 wings cover, are traditionally covering actually the face, but not here. And it's because your mind, you're going past your thoughts. And with 2 wings you fly. That's contemplation. So when you've managed to overcome, the distractions of both body and mind, then you can take flight. As you know, he's a slayer of dragons in the West, St. Michael, but he really is, and I confirmed this with this guy in my conversation with him. He's associated with dragons. He represents enlightenment, as the dragons do in the East. We've talked a lot about this. The dragon is a positive symbol. But on the back it says, I am the slayer of the dragons of illusion. So that's where you rejoin the West, the dragons of illusion. The serpents in the bad sense we have in the West. But then the Kundalini energy, you are all dragons. We're all dragons in the positive sense of integration of all these energies. And get this, you must devour yourself to be whole again. So you must devour all those energies and transform them so that they become the positive, harmonious energies. It's like the Kundalini, the dragon going, it's like Ouroboros, the dragon eating its tail, the snake eating its tail. You have to devour yourself to become yourself. You have to die in order to live. Duh. Passion and resurrection. In fact, one of the retreats on my retreat had an infinity symbol on his arm of the dragon eating its tail. And it is infinite. It does open you to infinity. Interesting stuff. So you're all dragons and must devour yourself to be whole again. Hold on, just one more. So Richard Rohr, with whom I had dinner last night in Albuquerque, he's been talking about Islam in his daily meditations, and for several reasons this poem that came through last week fits very well. It's from a poet named Rabia, a Muslim poet in the 8th century. The breath of God. By the way, James speaks about, the guy at the temple speaks about dragon breath. I think that's what we were doing on our retreat. But as you breathe here, think of it as dragon breath, not while you're meditating, but later think of it as dragon breath. The breath of God. Here's the poem. In my soul there is a temple, a shrine, a mosque, a church, where I kneel. You're the temple, as Paul says. You're the temple of the cosmos. That's why in your soul there's a temple. It is the temple, or a shrine, or a mosque, or a church, or whatever. Next line. Prayer should bring us to an altar where no walls or names exist. So we're going beyond all that. He says, is there not a region of love where the sovereignty is illumined nothing? Is there not a region of love where the sovereignty is illumined nothing? You just saw, you're everything because you're nothing. And only if you're nothing can you be everything. Illumined nothing. Next line. Where ecstasy gets poured into itself and becomes lost. Again, where ecstasy gets poured into itself and becomes lost. That's like in Christianity, the Trinity, this constant circle of it's emptying itself and getting lost in itself, this ecstatic pouring out, and that becomes lost, but gets poured into itself. Or the dragon devouring itself. It's poured into itself and becomes lost and found, because that's only when you're lost are you found, as St. John of the Cross says, and as my ordination card says. And get this line. Where the wing is fully alive, but has no mind or body. Where the wing is fully alive, but has no mind or body. The wing, flying, has no mind or body. We just talked about that. There you go. And then lastly, so in my soul there is a temple, a shrine, a mosque, a church that dissolve into God. So if you let this follow its natural energy and tendency and pattern, it will go off into the Advaita, non-duality, dissolves into God, the Absolute. Did you follow any of that? Good, good. At least you got some of it, I hope. We're already late, but is there any question or remark that